Hello everybody, good afternoon. Okay. This is our final review, final time we meet. So first talk a little bit about the final exam, and then we will go over the review. So just a few words about the final. I remember it is a lot like previous exams. It will have 25 total questions. Roughly half of them will come from the first material for the first two exams. Those are not, of course, going to be exactly the same questions on the first two exams, but the material will be the same. It will be very similar to what we covered on the first two exams. And half of it will come from chapters 5 and 6, which we had after the last exam. Now it is 25% of the grade, but nonetheless it is very important, 25%. I did not update the homeworks yet. Well, he's sleeping peacefully. Hold on, Sandy. Yeah, so I did not update it yet. I will try to do it shortly because your homeworks are all done, but some students are still not completely done. I got a couple of requests from students. The very last homeworks, if you missed some of them, I try to accommodate when I can. So that kind of delayed it a little bit, but we do have to finalize it now. There's really no more time for that. We have to make sure that everybody knows their total before the final exam. So I will update it, and then it will be 3/4 of your grade will be done. So remember that generally to get an A in class you need 92%. 92% for an A. If it's 91 or 90, it's A minus. 83% for a B. Again, if it's 82 or 81, it's B minus. 73% for a C. And to pass the class, you need at least 60%. So for your total, that's what you need. 60% at the minimum. Naturally, if you miss the final, that will be very difficult for you to even pass the class. But otherwise, seems like most students will be able to pass it. Some of you may want to do better on the final, but if you miss any of the elements, such as one of the exams or the homework, then it will be, of course, very difficult. Close to impossible. It's possible only if the other three components are close to 100%. But that is very clearly stated on the syllabus, and that's how it is. Now, how did students do on the final before? This is in classroom. I've never had it online yet, so I don't know exactly. The experience from the first two exams tells me that I should expect about 10% higher result. That's what it was in all the sections. But the reason, of course, is because you have all these notes and you have all this other information you can access, which students in classroom do not. Now, that again is why I will not be very flexible in terms of grades, because I think that if you have all these opportunities and you don't take advantage of them and you still do poorly, then perhaps you do not deserve a better grade. The previous, this is for fall 18 and spring 19, they're like, I taught 3 sections each time. This is their averages from, in case if you're curious. 67.52, that was one class average. 61.5, 64.5, 66.7, 60.5, and 60.8. Those were the averages. Like I said, it's probably going to be around 10% higher, so I would expect the average for the final to be around 70%. Once everybody takes it, I can probably tell you what the average is, but I don't know if you're curious anymore. The high results, this is the highs in each class. So again, in the classroom, so now it may be higher. Once there was a student who got 100%, but it was fairly rare. for the most part 92, 96, and one time this one section only had 88 as their highest result on the final. But again, you can see it's like kind of not more or less mixed, but nonetheless there are students who do very well even in the classroom. Definitely expected to be better this time. We'll talk a little bit more about the final in the end, but this is just to give you some idea. So again, 45 minutes, 25 questions total, same thing as before. Okay, let's do a review now, because this is, like I said, the complemental review to the previous one. It has stuff which you really need to know. And we did cover all this stuff, of course, because that's the review, but amazingly it turns out that students don't really remember most of it. So the question, if corporations are people, then corporations have right to marry. Is this an argument? See how quickly we forget. No, Cindy, it is not an argument. It is conditional statement. Remember, conditional statement. Note that it does not try to prove anything. It just says if this is the case, then this is the case. Argument, on the other hand, is trying to prove something. And a good argument is the one which actually does prove something. So when it's just hypothetical, maybe this, maybe that, that is not an argument. Which, by the way, just to use an occasion, brings me about thinking about something, some current events, something which is happening right now, all these allegations about the elections and whether or not there was fraud. So note that there's so many allegations, but it fails in court. Why does it fail in court? Well, in court, this type of an allegation, if then does not work. The court doesn't care whether there's a possibility that it was fraudulent. In order to win your argument in court, you have to prove that it was the case, that there was fraud. So if you can prove that there may have been fraud, or there possibly was fraud, the court will throw it into a garbage. No court would ever take it seriously. There's always possibility of anything. There's possibility that aliens of outer space ran the elections. That does not give you a good argument to overturn the results of the election. You can only overturn them if you can bring consistent proof and say, okay, these people, X, Y, and Z, on this date, did this, this, and this, and because of that, the election were fraudulent. Now, to say, again, sometimes there is evidence like, oh, I saw a truck and it could have had all these ballots in it. Well, it could have, should have, would have. That, again, does not mean anything. And no court will ever overturn the election based on this speculations, because this is basically what it is, a speculation. Okay, and I'm saying it in a non-partisan way. It's just the case, which is why, again, judges appointed by Donald Trump are overturning it in court. Why are they doing that? Because when you are judge in court, you have to follow the same strict criteria. You cannot just go, oh, it could be fraud, so why don't we overturn the election? No, proof. Proof is what is needed. But of course, when you're doing it on Twitter, you can put whatever in there. You don't need any proof. Okay. Back to the subject at hand. Types of non-arguments which you guys should know. Remember, non-inferential passages, warning, piece of advice, statement of belief and opinion, loosely associated statement, and reports. Those are all non-arguments. Expository passages are also non-arguments. Illustrations are non-arguments. Explanations. And finally, conditional statements, which is go and if, then. That is a conditional statement. We just saw it. Also not an argument. Let's do a little exercise. And I know I told you no more extra credit, but guess what? I will give extra credit for today. Last few extra credits. Last few chances for people who still don't have 5, and of course several of you do have 5, so that is not available to you, but for everybody else. So we had these exercises before, but this is something you need to know. Tell me here, are those two arguments or non-arguments, and if it is an argument, what's the conclusion? If you do it correctly, you get the extra credit. So think about it. We don't have very much time. I cannot take all day, but let's say this is on the exam, so arguments or not arguments, what's the conclusion? Aha, good job, Karen. Yes, this number 2 is an argument. Oh, Karen, that's your last extra credit. Number 5. Now you have 5. Okay, yes, this is an argument. It is certainly true that Pluto doesn't act much like other planets. That is the conclusion. And everything else is there in order to prove that conclusion. Presents evidence in order to support this conclusion. So it is actually an argument. Number 1 is indeed non-argument. So be careful about that. I can tell you there's definitely going to be at least one question when you are given a passage and you have to figure out whether it's an argument or not. Obviously, you guys still need to work on that. Deduction and induction, another important topic which you should know very well. We mentioned it last time. We'll go into it one more time, slightly different angle. So again, deductive arguments, remember, are the ones where premise is intended to guarantee the conclusion, rests on necessary reasoning. In a valid deductive argument, if premises are true, the conclusion will always be true. So that's what valid deductive argument is. Now, if there's any chance whatsoever that you have true premises and false conclusion, that would make this invalid argument. Now, inductive arguments, on the other hand, we're talking about probabilities. That will never be 100%. Premises are intended to support the conclusion in the sense of making it more probable, and it rests on probabilistic reasoning. So again, if the premises are true, the conclusion will most likely be true in a strong argument and less likely in a weak argument, and we're looking for at least 50% probability. If it is 50% plus, then it is strong for the conclusion to be true, assuming premises are true. This is the types of inductive arguments. Again, predictions about the future. Anytime you try to predict the future, be it the weather or whatever, you could be wrong. Maybe you are very certain, maybe it's 99.9%, but you will never have 100%. Arguments from analogy, when you're comparing better known thing to a less known thing or event or state of affairs of some sort, then that would of course be again probabilistic. Inductive generalizations, whenever you take in a sample, try to generalize it to the whole. That is always based on probabilities. Arguments from authority, if you try to argue something based on, oh, I heard it from somebody else, or I read it somewhere, well, that depends on how good of an authority is it. If it is respectable authority, they are better arguments. If it is your neighbor Joe, it most likely is not. Nonetheless, those are always open to error. Could always be error, even if it is a very good authority. Arguments based on signs, be it road signs, plaques of some sort, again, they are probabilistic. And finally, causal inferences. Remember we talked about last time false cause. That is a fallacy. Again, whenever you try to make an inference from cause to effect, or from effect to cause, what is causing one other thing, that is very, very difficult area. You need a lot of information, and you may still very easily get it wrong because there's multiple causes in life, and it's hard to figure out what is causing what. It's never very straightforward. Okay, just to concentrate your attention, arguments from analogy. What is the analogy? You comparing two things or two states of affairs. Something like, because Christina's Porsche is a great handling car, it follows that Angela's Porsche must also be a great handling car. Now, how good of an analogy it is, of course, is hard to say until you see the actual argument. Sometimes it is a better analogy, sometimes it is a worse analogy. Okie dokie, let's try another extra credit exercise. You have 3 inductive arguments. Use your common sense. Are they weak or strong? If you get all 3 correctly, you get extra credit. Okay, Elizabeth, yeah, good job. Good job. Excellent. Let me see, do I have oh yeah, you have 2, now it's the 3rd extra credit. Okay, absolutely correct. Note that this is of course strong one. Most popular film star, billionaire, Jennifer Lawrence, popular film star, therefore probably Jennifer Lawrence is a billionaire. Now, why is this weak? Declaration of Independence says that all men are endowed by their creator by certain unalienable rights. Well, that is not even trying to prove the God's existence, right? That's not what it is about. It is concentrated on unalienable rights. How can that be proof of God? At the most, it can be a proof that people who wrote the Declaration of Independence believed in God, and they did. But the fact that they believed in God, of course, doesn't prove that God existed. So it is weak. And the last one, again, why is it strong? Note that unlike monkeys, today's humans have feet and are not suited for grasping objects. Given current trend, would we expect 1,000 years from now that we will obtain this ability? Probably not. It is more likely we'll forget how to use our hands. So naturally that is a rather strong argument. Okay, cognitive and emotive meaning. Again, to refresh your memory. Terminology that conveys information is cognitive meaning, has cognitive meaning. Terminology that expresses or evokes feelings has emotive meaning. Both of them can be present in statements, so we have to distinguish. Note the difference here. Death penalty, which is legal in 31 states, has been carried out most often in Virginia. However, since 1977, Texas holds the record for the greatest number. It is primarily cognitive, right? Because you can clearly see here they only given you the facts. There's no emotion whatsoever. This one, on the other hand, how do we know it is primarily emotive? Death penalty is cruel and inhumane form of punishment. Helpless prisoners, dragged from their cells, summarily slaughtered, only to satiate bloodthirst of vengeful public. All these words are emotionally charged words. Cruel, inhumane, dragged. Naturally, it has emotive meaning. So that would be primarily emotive. Okay, also remember that when you have a motive, you typically will have some sort of a value claim. Here the value claim is death penalty is bad. Anytime you have this kind of emotive claim, value claim in there, in emotive language, you probably have emotive meaning rather than cognitive. Now, let's do a little exercise again. Let's do this one as a poll. Not for extra credit, but as a poll. Which one of these statements has primarily cognitive meaning? A, B, C, or D? Take a vote. Let's see how you guys know this, how the distribution will be. So what do you think? Christopher, Dinara, you want to vote? You want to Remember, there is no penalty, but okay, well, we have to wrap it up, so I'll give you a couple more seconds. Okay, then. So majority, well, in fact everybody, actually correctly identified it. Yes, it is D. Good job. In previous section, actually, I had some people saying A, B, and C. Now that would be incorrect. Again, remember, primarily cognitive meaning, capital of Nevada is Carson City, completely emotion-free. Whereas in the other cases, you have emotion. Most TV shows are boring, right? And here you also have a value claim, don't you? That it is bad. They are bad. That's what they are trying to say. These orchards are gorgeous. Again, emotive word, value claim. They are good. That's what they're trying to say here. Now how about this one? Big businesses can't be trusted. Again, what is the value claim here? They are bad. So note that when you have emotive language, you typically have a value claim. Okay. Definitional techniques. Remember last time we talked about types of definitions. Do not confuse them. There are types of definitions: lexical, persuasive, and so on. But there are also techniques which we use to create them. And this is not the same thing as the definitions themselves. So there can be intentional and extensional techniques based either on intention or extension. And remember, intension of a term is the attributes. All the attributes we are looking for in order to identify the term. Attributes. Whereas extensional are based on what? Extension, which is what? Well, actually connotation is intentional. Denotation, but more specifically. Members, exactly. Based on members of the class. Members of the class. Okay. So, first extensional. They are also known as denotative because they are based on denotation, not connotation. The other way around. Denotation. And you are indicating members of the class. Now, that's why we have these three types. How can you identify members of the class? The easiest way is to point at them. That would be demonstrative, or also known as ostensive definitions. You point, you say chair, mountain, Washington Monument, or something. You can also name them individually. This would be enumerative. Enumerative definitions, the ones where you name them like Mona Lisa by Da Vinci, Starry Night by Van Gogh. Those would be paintings, right? You name one by one. You can also name them in groups. That would be by subclass. How is this different? When you say something like maple, oak, know that oak does not stand for one particular oak. It stands for all the oaks, and there is like thousands or if not millions of them. So that is subclass. Class would be tree, right? Subclass would be oak. That's why it is called definition by subclass. Now, on the other hand, intentional or connotative definitions, which actually do the connotation, can be of these four kinds. Synonymous, when you just give a synonym, another word which sounds different but has exactly the same meaning. Etymological, this is when you describe the history of the word. Where does it come from? Latin, Greek, whatever its roots. Operational, this is when you suggest some sort of an operation which you need to perform to figure out whether the term applies, such as for electromagnetic impulses or whatever, you connect something and so on. And finally, the genus and difference, those are the ones which we usually see in a dictionary. And remember, we did exercises to create them. How do you do that? Your word, your term would be a species, and you need to find the genus or next level up of whatever it is. And that would be, for ice, for example, water, right? Water is a type of ice. Ice is a type of water, sorry. But what is the difference between water and ice? It is frozen water. So there's your definition. Ice means frozen water. Okay, let's do this little exercise again real quick. I guess we can do it for extra credit. Give me the definition by genus and difference for the word biologist. Biologist. So remember, you have to find its genus, and you have to find what is the difference between that genus and the biologist. Can you do it? We did that in class again. Now remember, Elizabeth, just like we mentioned before, this is circular. They cannot be circular. It's just water is watery. You have to use a different word there rather than biologist. Biology. I mean, of course, biologist would be studying biology, but can you say it in some sort of different way? Okay, I guess I will give you extra credit for that anyway, especially since I don't see any other people answering. So now you will have 4. Yeah, so scientist would be your genus. Obviously, biologist is a type of scientist. But a better way would be who studies life. Studies life. Studies biology, like I said, is way too circular. You cannot use the same word to define the same word. That becomes redundant. So studies life is much better way to put it. And biology, bios in Greek, by the way, means life. So that's essentially what it says. Bios logos, study life. Okay, now false dichotomy. Let's look at some of the fallacies. Like I said, last time we looked at some fallacies. This time we'll look at some fallacies. Some of them maybe on the final. It will not be exhaustive list, but the ones which I pay special attention to are more likely to be found there, so we do it for good reason. So false dichotomy. What is a false dichotomy? Anytime you have something which starts with, remember, this type of disjunction, A or B, that is a dichotomy, because you have a choice of 2, and then how it's supposed to go is you eliminate one of them, you say not B, for example, which naturally will validly lead you to A. If it is indeed A or B and it's not B, then of course it should be A, right? But what is the problem with false dichotomy? The problem is you really have a third choice, or maybe even more than that, or X, whatever that X may be. Note that if it is A or B or X, saying not B no longer gives you A. Now it gives you A or X. And that is a very different result. So if you try to make it sound like this is just the only 2 choices, you are committing this fallacy, false dichotomy. There's an examples we got in class. Either you let me attend Pink concert, let's say P, or I'll be miserable for the rest of my life, or M. Remember, we can notate it like this. And then they tell you, I know you don't want me to be miserable for the rest of my life, so not M. And therefore they are suggesting that the conclusion is, of course, P. You will let me attend the concert. But note that there is a problem here. And again, what is the problem? Well, perhaps there is a third choice, X, which is to find happiness somehow without attending the Pink concert. And one would hope that it is possible, or in fact one would suspect that it is possible. Very few people would be immediately miserable for the rest of their life after they just did not attend one concert. So that is the problem with these kinds of arguments. Equivocation, again, remember we talked about it last time. Students for some reason really have trouble with it, so just to remind you. Equivocation based on the different meanings of either the word or a phrase. And it could be used explicitly or implicitly, meaning explicitly it is actually there, implicitly it's not there but it is implied, and if it is then creating some sort of an illusion, some sort of fallacy, then it is fallacious. So here's an example. Some triangles are obtuse. Whatever is obtuse is ignorant, therefore some triangles are ignorant. Note that the word obtuse used in two different senses, two different meanings, when it applied to triangles or when it applied to people when you say they are ignorant. And based on that again creates this kind of fallacy. Any law can be repealed by legislative authority, but the law of gravity is the law, so it can be repealed by legislative authority. Again, the word law used in two different senses here. Okay, that's not for extra credit because I think it's too easy, but identify the fallacies, or if there is no fallacy, then say no fallacy. Take a look at these two. What do you guys think? Are there any fallacies? Remember, even if it's not for extra credit, it is in your best interest to... What do you mean fallacy? You have to identify the fallacy. No, that's not correct. 17 is not equivocation, and 24, well, whether it has fallacy or not, the question is which one. Exactly. You're wrong. Well, it should be so easy that I don't even, like I said, I'm not gonna give extra credit for it, but I'm surprised that you guys can do it right after we talked about it, like literally seconds ago. Now note that, of course, this one has a false dichotomy. It opens the choice between business administration or no chance of successful career, and then based on that, it says, well, since you are not doing B, then no chance. Obviously, that there is a third choice, right? More than a third, there's a fourth and fifth. Like you can be a doctor, a lawyer, lots of other things with successful careers. Now, this one is also a fallacy. Note that the fallacy, the equivocation, is on the word found. The word found used explicitly here, it is used implicitly here. It's not in the second part, but it is there in spirit, so to say. So emeralds are seldom found in this country. And what found they talking about? They're talking about how they are mining them or whatever. The commercial process of discovery. Now how about, so you should be careful not to misplace your emerald ring. Here they actually are implying that it will be hard to find it, but in the different sense of the word. If you look under the couch, if you look under the sink, that is not the same find. So that actually is equivocation. Again, be careful about that. It could be in some cases implied rather than explicitly stated. Another fallacy you should know is a composition, and again we mentioned it last time, but for some reason it's difficult for students. So when you transfer equality from parts to the whole improperly, that will be composition. Division, on the other hand, if you go the other way from whole to the parts, and again improperly, you should always ask yourself whether it's even improper. So improper would be something like Maria likes anchovies, she also likes chocolate sundae, so then they conclude that she will like chocolate sundae topped with anchovies, and that of course is improper transfer of the quality of liking them from parts to the whole. On the other hand, it can be from whole to the parts, but not always improper. So every atom in this teacup has mass, therefore teacup has mass. That is not improper. Also, every component in this picket fence is white, therefore the whole fence is white. That is not an improper transfer. The transfer of the quality is there, but it is not improper. It is perfectly valid. It's how it works. So always pay attention and ask yourself when you see whatever argument on the final, is it even improper transfer? Is there even a fallacy here? Because very often students get carried away by thinking, oh, they're transferring quality, that must be composition, before they even ask themselves, is it even improper? And many students do make mistake because of that. Hasty generalization. Once again, what is a hasty generalization? Generalization is a proper statistical procedure. You are taking a sample from the whole. If you have a lot of, say, people voting or a lot of oranges in your barrel, you may not have time and resources to ask every single one of them or to investigate, to check every single one of your oranges. Then you take a sample. There is nothing wrong about that, but you have to do it properly using the proper procedure. It should be random. It should be representative. Now, if you do not do it randomly, you may commit hasty generalization. Then your sample simply not going to be representative. With people it's more difficult, but even with oranges it's possible. If you do not mix them well after each time you pull one, then you will not have a representative sample. There will be a problem with it. It may very well be that you are taking all of them from the part of the barrel which has all the good ones, be it on top or closer to the side or whatever other spot in your barrel is like that. Now, once you mix them up, however, your chances of getting a good sample are way better. If you, say, have 1,000 oranges in your barrel, you take one, you mix it very well, take another one, and so on. Even a dozen oranges will give you a very good example about what they are. If all dozen of them are, for example, good, then there is very good chance all the 1,000 is good. If all dozen of them is bad, on the other hand, then probably the entire 1,000 is bad. If half of them is good, 6 of them say good, 6 of them are bad, believe it or not, that actually tells you that about 500 of them will be good, 500 of them will be bad, and so on. So proportion of your sample gives you a very good idea about the proportion in the whole, as long as it is random. So that is very important. Now let's do this one for extra credit. So look at these three and figure out are there fallacies? If so, which ones? You can say no fallacy, or you can say name whatever fallacy there is. If you get all three correctly, you will get extra credit for this one. So use your best judgment. Try, take a chance. There's no wrong answers. If you answer wrong, there's no penalty for that. But if you answer right, you will get extra credit. That should not be very difficult. It really should not be. Again, if you guys are confused about that, there is a problem. You may want to really go back and try to figure it out, because that should not be difficult. Oh yeah, that's true, Sandy. Just keep it in mind, and then you can compare it to the result. But there's a bunch of people who do not have extra credit. There are some people who really need it badly, and this is the chance. Take a shot at it. Okay, so let's take a look. Every sentence in this paragraph is well written, therefore the paragraph is well written. Is there a fallacy? Now obviously anybody can answer. That's no longer extra credits. No? You think that you cannot take bunch of well-written sentences and put them together into total gibberish You should read some of the essays I get from students. Yes, you can very easily do so, and that is why it is a fallacy. Just because paragraph is well written, sentences are well written, doesn't mean paragraph is well written. Just because words are meaningful doesn't mean the sentence is meaningful. That's not how it works. This quality does not transfer like this. And so it is a fallacy of composition from parts to the whole. Okay, how about this one? Water will quench once first. Water is composed of hydrogen and oxygen. Therefore, hydrogen and oxygen will quench once first. So naturally there is a fallacy, right? Did you ever try to drink oxygen? That's not really helping with the first. So that is a fallacy, but note that you are going the other way, right? From whole water to the parts. So that one would be division. And finally, George Clooney and Angela Jolie give large sums of money to charitable causes. Must be the case that all movie stars give large sums of money. Is there a fallacy there? Yes, of course there is. And which one? Well, what are they trying to do? They are taking a sample, right? They are taking a sample of 2 stars, and they are saying, well, based on this sample of these 2, all of them, we're generalizing to all of them do that. But what's the problem? Are they randomly selecting them? No, they are handpicking them. They are selecting ones which they know to be the case. Now, if you want to find out whether indeed the stars give large sums of money to charity, especially all of them, which is pretty strong statement, right? Not even most of them, but all of them, you have to take a random sample. And if in your random sample it so happens that all the stars do indeed give large sums of money, you will have a good case. Note that it's still not a bulletproof. You could still be wrong, especially about all of them, because that is, again, very strong statement. But you will have a good case. In this case, you don't, because you handpick 2 of them. That proves absolutely nothing. So that is, of course, hasty generalization. Okie dokie. Let's try one more. Let's see if you do better on this one. Same question again. Fallacy, no fallacy. If it is a fallacy, which one? See, you're not that ready yet. If you're having so much trouble with this stuff, you're not ready. You may want to do more preparation. That, of course, can help, but it's not going to, if you want to do well on the final, you do need more than that. Well, yeah, not everybody probably has notes. That may be the problem. But that may be why you, Sandy, have maximum extra credit and some people don't. Anyway, I guess I will have to do it myself too. By the way, the previous 11 o'clock section, they had more students taking a shot and more students getting it right. I don't know what's wrong with you guys. Maybe it's just later in the afternoon, so you're too tired or something. I don't know. But nonetheless, we can't wait all day. So let's look at the first one. An athlete is a human being. Therefore, a good athlete is a good human being. Is there a fallacy? Is this how it works? Yes, there is a fallacy. And note that something's going on with the word good. Good athlete, good human being. Is that used in the same sense for athlete as it is for human being? No, because good athlete, what do we mean? He runs fast, he can endure all this exercises, whatever. But do we look for that for a good human being? Not really, not at all. Good human being would be compassionate, and so on, the different set of qualities. So what is going on? It is equivocation on the word good, right? So it is equivocation. Alex, I heard your testimony in court earlier today. Why did you lie on a witness stand? Now that should be easy, right? Obviously that is a complex question. So you should definitely get this one. Now let's look at the last one. George said that he was interviewing for a job drilling oil wells in the supervisor's office. We can only conclude that the supervisor must have an awfully dirty office. So they're trying to make a joke here, right? George told them that he was interviewing for a job drilling oil wells in the supervisor's office. Was he actually drilling oil wells in the office, or was he just interviewed in the office regarding drilling of the oil wells? Probably the second, right? They're trying to make it sound like the first. So again, note that there is some ambiguity in play. But it's the words of George. And since it is the words of George, it is amphiboly. You really should know by now, guys. Okay, well, let's move on then. Now, chapter 5. Remember, this is something you should know. Letter names, universal, particular. So if you put them in a square, and there will be no square, but you still have to remember it this way because it's just easier. A, E, I, and O. Remember, because it also is easier, like this 2 would be a universal, this 2 would be a particular, and the word some shows you that it is particular. Now, on the other hand, with affirmative and negative, these 2 are affirmative, these 2 are negative. And again, the words no or not show you they are negative. Okay, you should know that. Standard form, categorical, syllogism. Remember, what is a syllogism in standard form? It should have 3 standard form prepositions. We mentioned last time what standard form prepositions are. 3 of them should be there. Last one has subject and predicate term, so the predicate term of it should be somewhere on top, in the top preposition, and the subject should be somewhere on the bottom, and then the third term will be middle term. It should have total of 3 terms. Based on that, you can figure out mood and figure. Mood would be just the 3 letter names, whatever they are, like A, I, or whatever. And the figure, you just strike a line through your middle terms and then compare it to that picture. 1, 2, 3, 4. So it would be one of them. So in this case, it looks like 1, right? Okay. So that's what mood is. That's what figure is. This is the results from the notes. Again, here, what figure is this? Well, you strike the line. You see that's just like that. So it is 4. Venn diagrams. Okay, again remember, if you encounter something like this, and it is more complicated than the stuff on the exam will be like last time. So it will always have S, P, and M, and it will just ask you what parts are shaded. But let's say you have this and you need to shade them. What do you do? First question, you ask yourself, where do you start? So you always start with universal preposition. In this case, which one is universal? Well, it actually is on top, right? That one. This one is particular, but universal is first one anyway. So how do you draw it? First, remember, for each preposition, you just should know what the picture would look like. This is P, this is M. So all P are M. You need all P to be shaded outside of M. Then you look at your diagram. This is your M, this is your P, right? So it is kind of just inverted in like this way. And this is why you are shading this part. This is that part here, all of it shaded. Same thing here, all of it shaded. That's just the same exact picture. It's just kind of twisted. Now, second premise, on the other hand, it's same thing again. Some S are not M, so this is your S, this is your M, and what you actually need is you need an X inside S, outside of M. So that somewhere in that part. Now again, here you have your S, you have your M. So what is that part we are talking about? This is the part. So this is where your x should be. Note that part of it is already shaded. So you cannot put your x here, therefore it is here. If part is not shaded, remember, suppose that you would have to put an x in that area here. Suppose that. Where would you put it? On the line. Why? Because you have a line going through that area. Okay, let's try to do an exercise. I guess we don't have to do it for extra credit. Let's just try to do it together, I suppose. Now, if you're given something like that, how do you actually approach it? Again, what's the first thing you do? You figure out which premise should you start with. So this is premise 1, this is premise 2. Which premise do you start with? 2, exactly, because it's universal. Note that you have the letters P, N, A, and P. Now you draw the 3 circles and you name the bottom 2 according to your subject and predicate term, and predicate term of the conclusion, and the name. So the P would be this one. Again, note it's actually not, it's easier on the exam, you already have names, but this is how you should approach it, and you should always understand S and P will be these 2. Okay, next, since you are starting from this premise, again, just you do the drawing. You can do it on the side for yourself. P, N. So this is P, this is N. What should it look like? You should have this part of P shaded, right? That's what it looks like. This entire part should be shaded. So this is your P, this is your N. So which part of P should be shaded? That whole part. That whole part should be shaded. And note that again, sometimes students leave out this chunk. Why would you leave it out? No, you have to shade it too. When you're shading, you have to make sure that it looks exactly like this, like that whole thing. Okay. Now once you shaded it, you go to a second premise. Sum A R P. Again, note that sum A R P should look like this, right? A P. Now you have your A, you have your P. Know that now that you started from universal, part of it is already shaded, right? So you only have this little chunk here in order to put your X. You can barely see it because of how I drew it, but well, you know, the X is here. Okay, well, you're not gonna need to do that, but let's just ask ourselves, is it supported then? Is it valid? I guess I could have made it blue. Yes, it is valid, because note that what you need to have, and A, is you need to have an X somewhere in here, and you actually do. It is like slightly towards the top, but it doesn't matter. As long as it is within this area, it's fine. Okay, so it is also valid. This is the picture. Note that this is exactly what I did there. So the other thing you should know, again, this is modern figure A, I, and the figure, how do you figure out? Well, strike a line through the P, through middle terms, and then compare it to that picture. 1, 2, 3, and 4. This one looks like 4, so it is 4. Okay, now this part is always, students always struggle with it. So let's just refresh your memory. Modus tollens, again remember, there's modus ponens and tollens. All of them start with P and Q. So if P then Q. If it is, if P then Q, P, therefore Q, that is valid and it is modus ponens. Now if it is not Q, therefore not P, it is valid and it is modus tollens. There is also disjunctive syllogism, again P or Q, and not P, therefore Q. This is very simple to understand because you eliminating one of the choices. You are saying not P. So of course you would have Q left because out of only 2, that's the only other choice. Again, this is the list of all of them. Remember, I'm not gonna have these 2 on the exam, so don't worry about them. There's 4 valid ones. This is the valid ones. Modus ponens, modus tollens, disjunctive syllogism, which we just mentioned, and hypothetical, which is just 3 of them. And there's also 2 invalid ones. The 2 invalid ones are affirming the consequent, and even the name tells you what it is. You are improperly affirming your consequent. This is your consequent, you're affirming it. You're saying, if P then Q, Q, and try to go backwards to P, which of course is invalid. Or denying the antecedent. Again, this is your antecedent, and when you deny it, you say not P, and try to, because of that, assume that it is not Q. That again is improper. Just because it's not P doesn't mean it's not Q. Why not? Well, because it's sufficient but not necessary condition. So if it's not necessary condition, then there are other ways to satisfy your Q. It may still be Q. Okay, let's do another extra credit exercise. Try to figure out form of this, if there is a form, and whether it's valid or invalid. Remember, sometimes invalid may have no form. Sometimes invalid does have a form. But if it is valid, then of course it always will have form. So I need you to give me 2 letters for it if there is something, and then also make sure you say valid or invalid. For extra credit. There's a lot of people now who have maximum extra credit. 6 people. Ironically, of course, most of them don't even need extra credit. Yeah, it is great, but like I said, people who get extra credit usually are the ones who are doing very well anyway. And of course, it's nice to have extra credit too. Extra guarantee against doing badly. But there are still lots of people who don't. I mean, this is 6 out of 30. There's 30 people in class. So 24 people do not have maximum, and yet I don't see any answers. Come on, guys. Don't you want extra credit? Take a shot. Well, he's sleeping very peacefully right here, and doesn't look like wants to be disturbed. Maybe eventually he'll wake up and go have a snacky pour or something, but otherwise I feel bad waking him up. It's mean. He needs his rest. So anybody gonna try it? They're starting to approach the end of the review. Taking a little too long. Okay, so once again, how do you do that? So always start with P and Q. So P, horseshoe, Q. Now once you do that, of course, you already assigned your P to this. This is your P, and your Q to this. So based on that, what is this? If not L is your P, then what is L? Not P, naturally. And now that U is Q, what is not U? Again, very easy, yeah, not Q. Does it look like any of the forms we covered? They ideally should be right in front of you. Yes, it is DA, denying the antecedent. And this is exactly what they are doing here, right? This is the antecedent, they are denying. No, this is the antecedent, they are denying the antecedent. And they are getting improperly concluding based on that this is not a consequence. So denying the antecedent. And that is of course invalid form. Invalid form. Okay, let's try it with this 2, even though I'm afraid now, given that even 1 wasn't, but let's see if somebody tries it with 2. Same exact question with this 2. There will be actually several questions, I can tell you right now, on the exam like this. So you really do need to know that. If you don't know that at all, you will miss at least, I forgot, 2, 3, something. We run out of time. There's still a few things I want to do before the end, so let's do it together then. Okay, every time you see something like this, that does look like you may need to switch around the premises. Why? Because you would never have one letter on top, whether it's denied or not. So you have to try that and see if that works better. So just do it for yourself. Switch them around. Now once you do that, then try to rewrite it as P and Q. Otherwise, if you start doing it, rewriting it with P and Q right away, that will never match anything, because you have only one on top. Remember, none of them has one line on top, one letter on top. So this again will be a P, this will be a Q. So if that not N is your P, then what's your second line? Why? Not N is your P. This is not N again. Why would you change it to not P? Both of them are not N. You don't change that. If it's the same, it's the same. So it is again P. You took a mental note that not N is your P. So of course, since it is still not N, then it is still P. Yeah. And then what is this? So T is your Q, and this is T, so it is again your Q. Now does it look like any of the forms we covered? Yes, modus ponens valid. That is the answer for this. Now same thing with that one. Again, you assign P and you assign Q, and you keep your mental note that this is your P and this is your Q. Based on that, what is this? Since M is your P, what is not M? Not B, right? And since not B is your Q, what is this? It's again not B, right? Exactly the same. So it is again Q. And then based on that, does it look like anything? Yeah, disjunctive syllogism, again valid. Okay, that would have been the extra credit. Now a few other things. Implication. You have to remember that stuff. Remember there's 3 important situations. If it is if, then, or if it is only if, we do not switch them around. But in only one case, when it's just if, blah blah, if, blah blah, then we switch them around, we put N here and P here. So that's the only time we do that. Okay, let's try this extra credit for you guys. I will turn the board on. You will have to give me the notation for all 3 of them. And then you get extra credit. So this is, remember, C, L, this could be R, this could be M, this could be M, this could be E, and this could be D. But you have to correctly connect them with the whatever notation. Tell me if you want to do it. I'll turn on the multi-user board and you can just draw it for me. And if you do it correctly, you get extra credit. Well, no, it's not necessary, Karen. Then since you have maximum, I can do it myself. I mean, that's not about trying it. It's about give an opportunity for extra credit. So if nobody else wants it, I'll just give you the answers. Same thing. If you can do it for yourself if you want. Okay, so last chance. Anybody want to do it? Okay, so I'll do it myself then. So in the first one, do we switch them or not? Yes, we have just if. So we put L here, horseshoe C. In this case, do we switch them or not? Number 8. No, only if, so we do not switch them. So it is still R and this is still M. And finally here, note that either tells us that this and this should go together, right? So it would be M and E in parentheses, and then or D. So that's your correct answers. Okay, we are really running out of time, so main operator, I will quickly give you the chance. If somebody wants to do extra credit, you will have to circle the correct operator, which is a main operator, in all 4 of them. I will turn on the multi-user board if you want to use it. If you identify all 4 correctly, you will get extra credit. This is probably the easiest of them all, and you have to do it quickly. If you want to, just tell me, and then I'll give you this chance. If not, then of course we have to wrap it up. 5 seconds. Anybody want to take a shot? Marta. Okay, go ahead. Okay. Oh, Marta, I'm not sure what you're doing, because remember, there's only one main operator in each and single case. You can't have so many main operators. Main operator is the one notation which is outside all brackets and parentheses. If there is something other than tilde, then it will be something other than tilde. So in this case it is this, in this case it is this, in this case it is this, and in this case it is this. You can't have more than one main operator, because that's why it's called main operator, because this is the leading one. This is the one which is the boss of all operators in that particular expression. So you really have to look at this chapter again, because you are kind of lost about it. But okay, I will give you extra credit anyway. You know, out of goodness of my heart, this is the last extra credit. You have second one now. That's it. No more extra credit. We're out of time too. So just briefly, the exam will be on Tuesday, December 8th at midnight. From Monday to Tuesday, it will open up, close 24 hours later. This is the time when you should take it anytime on Tuesday. Remember that there is still late submissions possible on Wednesday, but it will be 10% penalty. Do not do it on Wednesday. Only worst case scenario if you missed it, if you really had something, emergency, whatever. Now the grades which you will see, of course, will be before extra credit. I will add extra credit later, 24 hours later, maybe even more, because sometimes there are students who still take it next day, and I want to do it for everybody once everybody is done. And the final grades will be posted on Canvas as a letter grade. I will create another assignment. It will be called final grade, and it will not be grade for the final exam. It will be final grade in class, and it will be something like, let's say, C, which basically means this is what will go on record. Okay, yeah, that's all the time we have. So thank you guys. This is the last time we meet again. After this, all you need to do is take the final, and I will decide on your grades, and that's it. Have a good weekend, and make sure you take the final, make sure you prepare. Bye bye.